I'd like to start this video off by saying that this is a major trigger warning, and if you have a problem with mentions of trauma or the general discussion of trauma, I would click off of this video now, just because of the nature of creating new alters and starting a system and things like that. Um, so this is your warning. If you don't like any of talk of that, please click off now. Otherwise, enjoy. Hey guys, this is Fletcher, and today I'm going to be talking about subsystems. So, in one of our last videos, we went a little in depth on kind of a subsystem. Sean said that he had split off of Sophia, and somebody had requested that we go more into detail and explain a little bit about subsystems, how they're made, things like that. So, what is a subsystem, right? It's when an alter splits off of an alter, and put it simply, it would be like alters splitting off a host, and those alters becoming a host, and having alters split off of them. And usually, not always, but usually, this is this happens to main alters. Now, that doesn't always happen. I am part of a subsystem. I'm from Falcon's brain, and his brain is very interesting, and we talk to each other, and it's kind of funny. So, this next part, I'm gonna have a big old trigger warning, because we are going into trauma and trauma related details and things like that, so I don't want anybody to get triggered or anything like that. I want everybody to stay safe. So some alters experience trauma for the host. So growing up, that's what alters are for. They're to take the trauma, things that the hosts themselves can't handle, and sometimes they themselves can't handle that trauma, so then they fracture, and that creates a subsystem. Another way that happens is if alters experience trauma in system. Some alters come into system with a backstory, and a lot of times, because of the nature of systems, their backstory can be traumatic, and they can come into system being a subsystem. And just one example of a bad backstory but no subsystem would be Alexander. His dad was fairly abusive, and he came into system, but he didn't have a system. Now Sophia has a traumatic backstory in system. So I'll show you our system map at a later date, but we have what's called the Empire, and she was born there, raised there. She went into the Royal Guard basically, and through that came a few traumatic events. Now, if you really want to hear about this, I can post another video. It's basically her growing up being a military brat and falling in love, not supposed to be falling in love, and getting in trouble for it, things like that. So, but I'm not going to go into it too much in this video because I kind of want to stay lighthearted, even though that's kind of hard to do when you're talking about trauma, but I try. The third way an alter can be a subsystem is really through dissociation. So growing up, like I said, they are constantly protecting the host, constantly fronting, um, and sometimes they can't handle their own role. And we don't have any examples of that. I will get into myself here in a minute, but we don't have any examples in our system. But Devin's system, I believe Xavier is one of the examples. And if they feel like talking about that, they can, but I'm not going to go too into depth because it is kind of a personal matter. Um, so they can become overstressed and fracture because they can't handle what they're going through. Now, me, I come off of Falcon, which the whole story behind that was we were. So he was born and he had a twin. His twin is Talon, and maybe you'll meet Talon sometimes because she's actually an alter. And so when they got separated at birth, I think Falcon was old, like more mature in the mind to know what was going on, and Talon was not, and so Talon went off, and she doesn't remember getting taken away, but Falcon does, and therefore here I am. And he didn't have a whole lot of anything major going on, and I guess that's one thing that can happen that's not like super trauma based. I guess it's still trauma, but it's not the usual sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse. This was him experiencing such a loss. He loved his sister. And this was him experiencing such a loss that he detached himself, and I became present. So that's where I came from. Um, Now, this is just kind of little facts, at least about where I am. So his headspace is kind of like a black void, but I still have a little bit of things. I have a bed, I have a TV, so it's kind of like an inner world inside the inner world, which I think is pretty cool, but maybe that's just me. Um, Now, I confront in his body inner world, and I will actually look like myself. I have like shorter hair, bird. I'm a bird, kind of. um, my feathers are a little bit different colored than his, and eye color differs and things like that. Now my style is completely different than his. He kind of likes going shirtless because we have wings. I like wearing a shirt. I don't personally wear pants. We have tail feathers. That gets all wrinkled up in there, and it's weird. Why would you want to wear pants over that, right? Um, and yeah, so I confront in system, and then by fronting in system, I have the ability to front out here. It's double fronting. And that can get hard sometimes. Fronting for us kind of feels like you're holding yourself up on a ledge, and depending on how well you're doing mentally, like how not stable but mentally strong you are, I guess, is this block that's underneath you. So your toes are here, so your hands are up here holding onto this ledge, and your toes are here. So me right now, I'm like here, so I'm standing on that block. And then if somebody is starting to dissociate or lose grip of the front, it's like that block is getting lowered and your toes are kind of going down. And if that block is gone, then you're holding yourself up. It's really hard to front. So that's kind of what that's about. If you have any other questions about this, I know I try to cover as much as possible my experience. I know Sophia and Sean and her other two couldn't front for this video, but if you have questions for them, what their inner world is like, inner world, um, you can pop that down in the comments, or you can ask us privately or directly on Facebook and the other social medias that we have that Devin pretty much runs. Um, yeah, so you all have a good day. I'm sorry I'm talking quietly. We're our living situation is a little interesting, so we are living with somebody who doesn't know, and we're trying to keep it down, so that's why I'm not energetic or moving around or doing anything like that, because I kind of want to keep it to myself just in case he's not okay with it. I don't see why he wouldn't be, but you never know with new people, and so I kind of just want to keep it quieter. So I'm sorry about not being so articulate or anything like that, but I am just trying to be a little quieter today. Thank you all. Like and subscribe if you want, and have a great week.